everybody. Welcome back to the Midnight Terrors podcast. I am your co-host today, Kevin/Bucky, here with my regular co-host, Diamond/Jason. Jason, what's up?
I am hanging out, looking forward to our guest, and I'm gonna call it the Midnight Terrors pod podcast.
You didn't say the most important part. You're in your car now.
Yeah.
That is important to note for sure.
Is that why is your camera on, but there's just no light going on?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is, but you can't see me. It's gonna be a Cancer Man situation.
That's cool.
Like from the X-Files. You'll see me like lighting up a cigarette and just love it.
Oh, now that would be cool. I'm looking forward to that. Don't let me miss that.
Yeah. You'll see my face light up just with the cigarette.
No, that's cool. That's cool that you didn't like just turn off your camera, which probably would have been practical, but you're keeping it on so we can watch the lighting of the cigarette.
So Jason, we're back. We're coming off the heels of our live event at Oak Road Brewery. So thank you to everybody, including Mr. J, who came out and participated. That was a good time. And this is our final episode for the month of October. And we're doing it in style because we're tackling not only one of the best movies in the horror genre, but we have a very, very, very special guest here to do that with us. So we are tackling the movie Poltergeist tonight, and we are first joined by Mr. J. Hello, Mr. J.
Hey, glad to be here.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And we would also like to welcome our special guest this evening, Mr. Matthew DeMerritt, who you would know from the movie E.T. He is an actor.
I'm sorry, you mispronounced that. It's DeMerritt. How many times did I tell you this?
We went over this so many times.
I know. We're all failing tonight.
I got
Jason,
your back, Matt.
Fuck him up, man.
Jason doesn't have his camera right. Mr. J doesn't have his name right on his screen, and then I can't pronounce our guest's name. We just got to call this recording off, I guess. But
all right, that was a little in-joke, audience. I actually said I was cool with both pronunciations beforehand. He was like, "Oh, okay."
So
by the way, isn't my name?
Okay, give him some shit.
Oh, no problem. That's what I do. Isn't it cool? My last name is awesome, huh? It's like it's a military punishment, but it's also just like a regular name.
I actually was thinking that as I pronounced it. I was like, oh, a demerit.
Exactly. I mean, how negative a connotation do you have to have next to you?
Right?
I mean, for yourself is.
And you gave all of us. You gave us 3 demerits so far, so it's beautiful.
Exactly.
But
everybody calls me Diamond because that's my last name. So
that's a good one.
Yeah,
there we go. It's
not negative.
You got Dustin Diamond. You got King Diamond. You're in good company.
Don't get any funny ideas about calling yourself King.
Oh wait,
Diamond,
there's another
Jason.
Diamond. Yeah, I know, right? Don't sing though, please. Try to protect my hearing. There's another Diamond from Fabulous Baker Boys, Michelle Pfeiffer. She played Debbie Diamond or something like that.
Oh yeah, yep. Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think all the diamonds that I know.
Oh, that's beautiful. But so we are here tonight with Mr. Matthew DeMerritt, or Matt DeMerritt, as we'll probably refer to him throughout the night. And you know him from the movie E.T. He is an actor / stunt performer in E.T. in the E.T. suit on the movie. So
and E.T. itself is a horror movie, right?
Forget
about Poltergeist.
We're going to get into that because, so Matthew, first of all, welcome to the show. It's an honor to have you here tonight. We've been working on this for like 7 months now, and I'm glad we're finally doing this. But I remember meeting you at Horrorhound in Cincinnati and talking to you at your table. And when you offered to be a guest, so graciously offered to be a guest on our podcast, you were saying to me, well, technically E.T. is kind of a horror movie if you really think about it. And I'm like, you don't got to convince me. I believe it.
Yeah,
it could be
on so many levels, right? Okay, what were you going to say? Who said it could be?
That would be Jason.
Diamond. Yeah.
Are you ready to defend this? It sounds like we might have a contrarian here.
I'll fight him. I'll fight him for you, Matt. Don't worry about
it. On the flip side, Mr. J actually has a story tying into his background with the movie E.T., which is why I asked him to join the show, not just talk about the movie. But Mr. J, would you like to share your story?
No.
This is tying back to
Matt,
like
thanks
episode...
for the nightmares.
Yeah.
Hey, you're welcome.
This is time
So
back to like episodes 3 and 4 where he brought this up.
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Oh, I
it's
should have listened to
true.
those.
No one ever really believes it, but it's true. So I love horror, always love horror. Grew up on it, love drawing like pictures of Frankenstein's monster and the Wolf Man, just draw, like loving all that stuff. The only movie that has ever messed me up is Your Fault.
I believe it. You don't think I've heard those stories before?
I'm sure you have. I'm sure you have. And
I mean, from my own,
I'm talking
Oh, go ahead.
nightmares. Nightmares is
Oh,
what
really?
I'm talking about. Like years of nightmares. Like not just a little bit. I remember running across the house to just sleep on my parents' floor. I was so freaked out.
Wow. How old were you when you first saw it?
This was last year. I'm just kidding. It's been a rough.
Okay, then,
it's been
all
rough,
right,
Matt.
He's being
That-
generous.
okay,
This
that
was
is
just
unique.
last weekend.
Matt, it's been really rough.
Oh, man.
No,
Oh,
this
that's
was.
beautiful.
I think
I
you need
was-
therapy.
Yeah,
Therapy is
I
in
was-
order.
That's right. I was probably 6.
Okay, that would make
Probably
sense.
6 or 7.
Sure. Yeah, it could be traumatizing that age for sure.
Oh, it was rough. It was rough, and I could not. Even then, I'm like, I watch Creature from the Black Lagoon like all the time. I watch all these other movies all the time, but this is the one. I only had to see parts of it one time.
Oh, he's lighting up a cigarette. Hold on. Everybody shut
That's
up.
right. Oh,
Yep. Everybody shut it. Everybody shut it.
Oh man, I wish I would
Yeah.
have screenshot that one. That looked almost artistic.
there'll be another one
Good
coming.
good aesthetics. All right, yeah. Smoke away, bro.
Wow,
That's what I
Mr.
do.
J coming in hot, literally with there'll be
As
another
he's-
one. Just
As
so
he
like
sprints toward
You're
heaven.
supposed to warn us, man. I would just so happen to be looking at the screen.
oh my goodness. I was so not prepared for that.
Okay, 6. Okay, so you were 6 years old. So
6 or
they had-
7.
That would totally make sense.
Oh yeah, it was rough. I mean, rough. I remember, golly, all these little scenarios in my head that
Yeah.
I had that he was just on my heels and he's looking through the window and he's like, I mean, I would get out of my room and run across the house in the middle of the night.
Oh, okay.
Like-
So this is different. So E.T. was like a horror character too. He
Yes.
was like a villain.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, there was
Yeah,
a
yeah.
lot of villains in that movie.
Sure.
You know, the
Well,
government,
well,
of course.
Okay.
You know, most people are scared of the government agents in ET.
Yeah.
No,
I was as
Mr.
well.
Mr. J is afraid of ET.
ET got me. ET was, I didn't get it. Like I was like, he's the color of poop. I don't understand. And then he turns white.
I'm a-
That's weird. And then the government agents. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
it instilled a healthy distrust in
Mhm.
in our officials, which you know, that's
Yeah.
probably for the better. But yeah, I mean, full on a visceral reaction when I would see ET.
Yeah, well,
Like,
that the scene in the cornfield, you know, where he's
Yep.
like, screaming and he
Yeah.
gets,
Oh
like,
yeah,
multiply. That was definitely meant to be frightening.
it
So,
was.
and I can
I
imagine
can
having-
confirm you,
Yeah, totally. I can imagine having a very traumatic effect on a 6-year-old.
especially
niece-
one that grew up on a farm with corn.
Yeah, absolutely. And what the hell were they growing corn for in California? I never understood that. You
That's
know,
a
that's
good
not
point.
like it's not it's not a typical crop in California.
No, I demand realism when I'm watching ET.
I demand an explanation. Why were you
Give
growing?
it to me.
No, we Robert and Henry and I we joke about the corn crop was to conceal the weed that Mary
Smart.
was growing in the background in the backyard. But
That's
let's
very
not go. Let's edit that part out.
I'm gonna I'm gonna look at ET a
Jump
very
cut.
different way when I watch it now.
I know, right?
Now that you've incriminated other people too.
Well, so
it-
I'll say this. I'll say this about ET. The kind of backyard situation, which he said, like it's like seeing the Reese's Pieces put out and everything, and then ET coming out, and the scene where they're like eating the pizza, and then don't believe Elliot. Like it's kind of creepy, man.
Yeah.
Like
Sure is.
We actually
it's very
likened
creepy.
we actually likened the ball being thrown back out of the shed to a scene from The Conjuring, and I'm like, wow, they
Oh,
actually
yeah.
they replicated that, and ET got there first.
Yep.
Oh, scary
that's good.
stuff.
Yeah.
And
No,
if I'm on the farm and I throw something into one of the barns or the sheds or the cornfield and it
Mhm.
comes back at me,
mhm.
that's not good.
Yep.
That's not playful. That's not fun. That's terrifying.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's more terrifying the younger that you are, for sure.
Yeah.
Sure
And so
is.
nowadays, now that Mr. J is a grown man, I chase him around and I do the ET scream and everything and just go.
So how long did it take you, Jay,
Friendship over.
how long did it take you to actually watch the movie in full?
That
I've got a
suggests that I have.
That makes me feel good. When I went to see Alien, I was 9. I remember hounding
Whoa.
my
Oh,
parents.
Loved it.
I hounded my parents to go see that movie in the theaters. There's just something about it. It was so intriguing. The ad campaign behind it. I don't know. I guess I subconsciously wanted to be really scared. So I went with my parents and my sister, and the scene where the chest burster leapt out of the egg onto John Hurt's face. I remember being traumatized during that. My sister and I were screaming during that, but somehow my parents calmed me down enough to get to the chest burster scene. Then the game was over on that one. We were just gone. We ruined the movie for everybody.
well,
So
and that's
good.
And
that is one of my favorite movies. I love Alien so much,
Yep.
the original. And I love
Thank you.
Aliens. The sequels,
Yeah.
of course. Like they're both fantastic. But yeah, I can see why that would tear you up,
Oh yeah.
because it tore me
I remember
up
I
too.
was hanging out. I was hanging out with Robert McNaughton. We were watching it. It was like 84. We were watching it, and we were watching in his room, and he saw me like shielding my eyes during certain parts, during the egg part, and he's like, "What's
Yeah.
up with that? Why are you doing that? You're 14. Why do you have a problem with it?" I was like, I don't know. It's really scary.
Leave me alone.
Because you're like, I'm
After-
scared of-
Yeah. No, and I did it like the chest burster scene. I had to do that, and he was like, he gave me this quizzical look, like, dude, this is an awesome movie. Why are you shielding your eyes?
I could actually
And then I had
see-
finally had to admit to him that I never made it to the end. I was 14. I never made it.
I could actually see Robert being that way, because we met him alongside you at Horrorhound, and he was joking with Henry Thomas, saying, like, my mom went up to him and said, "Oh, by the way, you were my favorite brother in the movie," and he goes, "Go over to Henry Thomas right now and tell him that." And he just wanted to cause trouble. So
Oh yeah, totally. He's a shit disturber for sure. I love that. I love that he did.
right. So you
Did
kind
she
of
do it?
touched on.
Did
you
she
kinda-
do it?
She did do that, actually.
Nice.
And
nice.
Henry was just like, "All right, do you want my autograph?" Or
yeah.
Ass.
That sounds
So-
like Henry. Move
right,
on.
that was beautiful. So you kind of touched on, Matt, our usual startup question whenever we get a new guest on the show, which is, what was
Oh,
your
yeah.
intro to horror like, and what were the movies that got you?
Sure. I mean, that was okay. Well, no, let's go back a little bit. My dad exposed me to Creature of the Black Lagoon and all those like early
Yeah.
horror movies that came on a channel called Channel 5. They had a show on Channel 5 in LA, KTLA, called Monster Rally, and it was just all black and white horror movies, and Creature of the Black Lagoon was probably the first one that freaked me out. And you can tell, I mean, looking back at on hindsight, in hindsight, my dad, he was getting that kind of joy of seeing me have a visceral reaction to this film that he probably had the same reaction to when he was a kid. So that was
That's
cool.
awesome.
Yeah. So that, I would say it was that, and I kind of horror didn't affect me as much as sci-fi. Like there was another show called Johnny Sacco and Giant Robot. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but that was a
No.
Japanese show, and it came on a public access show. It's one of those UHF shows. Is it UHF or VHF? Where all the channels are.
think
No,
it's
I'm
you.
not. I'm
I
actually
think
not familiar with
Yeah,
those.
okay, yeah, exactly. I'm showing my age here. But anyway, so I was really affected by that. And that was, it was basically the story of a boy, and he acquires this robot that's the size of a kaiju. And he fights all
Nice.
these other
Okay.
kaijus, like monster, like Godzilla like monsters and stuff. I was really, really into that. So I didn't like gravitate to horror and like cling to horror like other people have. So I'm not a geek when it comes to horror. So please don't like give me any trivia
No.
or quiz.
Well,
not at all.
I'll just scrap these questions that I had over here that were all
Oh.
horror trivia.
I have
Please,
to
yeah,
go.
so you're gonna have to improvise on this one, bro.
Yeah. No, we got you. We got you. Those
but
are both good options.
Yeah, that was
good
the first
intros.
one. Creature of the Black Lagoon, was awesome. And then for some reason, Alien, just the ad campaign for Alien really intrigued me to the point where I bugged the shit out of my parents. That brought me to it, ruined their day, ruined the day of everybody who was in that theater. And I really feel guilty about that, because that would annoy the fuck out of me if I went to
Yep.
a movie I took completely anticipated. We get two kids like completely freaking out.
Yep.
And but anyway, yeah. So that was I saw Alien all the way through. By the way, okay, I was like 15 or 16. Like
And
somehow Robert
how'd you do?
cajoled me into watching. I did pretty good. I didn't realize it was like after the chest burster scene, it was fine. I mean, that was the horrifying traumatic scene, the chest burster scene,
Sure.
and everything after that was just thriller.
So you did okay when the alien popped out of the pipeline or the little tunnel thing?
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. There's that one scene with Veronica Cartwright and Yaphet Kotto where they get killed. That was kind of traumatic, but it was just like the best thriller in the world after that. It's like I missed out on so much by being such a pussy and not getting past the chest burster scene.
There we go.
Well, I got a great a story about that. Well, I don't know, great it is.
No, go for it.
when I auditioned for ET, that consisted of me going down to Carlo Rambaldi's studio in Northridge. He had a creature effects studio there. I didn't know anything about creature effects or anything like that. I didn't even know who Carlo Rambaldi was. But Steven and Carlo were there. Some of the other guys on Carlo's staff were there. They were in the background. So I met Steven and Carlo initially. And I remember when I first went in the door, there was this long stairway going up to the attic of Carlo's studio. And the first thing you could see was, two things. You could see King Kong's giant finger because he designed King Kong's hand. Rick Baker designed the rest, as far as I know. And you can see the alien head, which Carlo Rambaldi designed because H.R. Geiger that was an epic fail on his part. He couldn't get the alien head to articulate, so they hired Carlo to design that part of the alien. So that was cool. I mean, it was, I didn't freak out and run into that studio. I was just like, oh, that's cool. I didn't like, why is that there? And then I had to question him about it. And that's when he told me that he designed it. So that was cool. So that was 11 then.
Wow. That is some mind blowing stuff.
Yeah. Right. I mean, to see that thing in person was just like crazy.
Insanity. Well, I mean, thank you for sharing your journey into horror, and we're glad that you got there because you actually picked the movie for us tonight. We're staying in the world of Steven Spielberg a little bit by talking about Poltergeist. So, what was the reasoning for picking Poltergeist tonight?
I don't know. I mean, I guess it was kind of random, but kind of also deliberate in a sense because that was right around the time of E.T. I remember when we were filming E.T. When you're filming a movie, you see a lot of people like wearing the promotional shirts or the shirts that people wore when they worked on the set of working on a particular movie. I remember seeing Poltergeist a lot. I was like, what the hell, Poltergeist? That sounds weird. That was as weird as Poultrygeist to me. I was just like, what the hell? What the hell does Poltergeist mean? It was really intriguing though, because it looked like, it was you remember the Poltergeist logo and had like a little explosion coming off the P and then a little explosion coming off? Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like that kind of. So it was just very intriguing.
Yeah.
So, so when it finally came out, I believe it came out a little earlier than E.T. I was like, oh, I know that movie. Oh, this is a trip. It was a trip to see it like all compiled and turned into like this very professional ad campaign, you know, and it kind of explained a little bit about what Poltergeist meant, and it's, you know, it's this ghost story.
Well, I
It'd be a
think
horror
with
movie.
Poltergeist, it was kind of the first like kind of accessible horror movie.
Yes.
So it was something that everyone could watch. Yes, is terrifying.
Yes.
But it's not so terrifying that like your 13-year-old could watch it, or something like that. And that's actually one of the first horror movies that my children have ever seen. My children are 8 years old. So for them to see that and love it and enjoy it, I think it's just one of those things that's not too over the top,
But yes,
but
but yet is totally over the top. You know, that's when they started to make the ratings board think about what are we doing putting PG on a film that has a scene where a guy is tearing his face apart.
Oh yeah.
And that's a really good
Absolutely.
effect too. That's a
Absolutely.
very realistic looking effect.
Yeah, so it's almost, and especially with my children being as young as they are, like I'm trying to kind of like ease them in to horror and not go too hard on it.
Yeah.
So just trying to find easy things for them to watch that they're not going to like have nightmares about.
Yeah.
So I went with the
We went
actually
with
their
we went
mom.
with the movie that where a guy's tearing his face apart.
Listen, it's no ET. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, their mom.
Yeah, there's no
their
gore in
mom-
ET.
That's a fair point.
It doesn't need it. It's terrifying.
Well, the girls used to love ET. Well, and they still love ET, and we still watch it all the time.
Yeah,
But
They're heartless.
yeah, so they're heartless.
They're unflappable. They can't be scared.
Well, you have to understand who their dad is. So
yeah,
he's an impressive specimen.
Well, I wrote this note down earlier when I rewatched the movie yesterday to sort of prep for this. This movie is such a perfect walk along that fine line between very fantastical, very Steven Spielberg adventure movie like E.T., while also throwing in like the ghost stories and the horror elements in it, because we can go from like a really funny scene or a fantastical scene to like the creepiest thing you've ever seen in your life in Poltergeist.
Yeah. Yes.
And I know that there's always a lot of back and forth about who really had the heaviest hand in directing between Tobe Hooper and Steven Spielberg. And Mr. J, I actually wanted to throw that to you because I hear a lot of people say, oh, I'm pretty sure Steven Spielberg did it, which love Steven Spielberg, but I kind of feel like Tobe Hooper had it in him to do the directing that's in this movie. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I feel like I heard a lot of comment on Hooper doing a lot of it. Not that Spielberg didn't do things, but that he was focused on a few other projects, and Hooper was a little more hands-on. I thought that's what I had heard.
Yeah, the main thing that I heard about that one, I have a couple trusted authorities, is that the first day of shooting, Toby and Spielberg were giving a 50-50, an equal amount of directions, and which is very unusual, unless it's specifically stated that it's going to be co-directed. I mean, Toby was clearly listed as the director on this, so
yeah.
So I hear that Beatrice Straight lost patience with this almost within like when the 10-15 minutes of getting these directions, you say, this has to stop. This is confusing. No one told us that this is going to be directed by two different people. We're getting two contradictory directions on how to play out the scene, and she just lost patience with it. And she had some authority at the time. I mean, she's a pretty famous stage actress, and I think that kind of then embarrassed Toby and Spielberg, and I think that's when Toby took over.
Oh, okay.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, had you heard that?
No.
Yeah. Doesn't that sound like something that Beatrice Straight would do? She'd be like, no, she seems like kind of like no nonsense kind of person. And
Right.
and she just spoke her mind. She said, this has to stop.
Yeah, that's an interesting insight that's definitely new to, I think, all three of us. And that's awesome to have you on the episode for that, to, you know, having worked on a Spielberg movie, to see that input that he has on this one compared to, you know, the Toby Hooper influence is very cool. So
yeah.
So we'll sort of go around here. What was everybody's first like watch of Poltergeist? Like, when did you get into it? I guess I'll start with mine. Jason actually can take the credit for this one. This was a movie that he introduced me to about a decade ago, right, Jason?
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I was a little bit older when I first saw Poltergeist. And funny story, I watched it with Jason, my little brother, and my nephew. And my little brother was probably 10, and then Tim would have been, Jason, what, like 6 or 7?
Yeah, and actually, what's funny is that we had your brother and we had Tim, and we were going to watch it at the house with you and your sister.
Oh, we watched it,
and
but you know where the story wound up.
But your sister was like, you can't let them watch this. And I'm like, come on. Like, this is like the most, I mean, there are really good horror movies. And this one is like super tame.
Right.
Like it is scary, but it's not like this gory, super over the top thing.
Well, Jason, to be fair, you had recently also gotten in trouble for showing my nephew Pet Sematary.
Well, yeah, that's true.
That'll do it.
My other sister called you and was just like, why would you show my kid Pet Sematary? He's scared to go to sleep. But we watched Poltergeist, and we got all the way to the last 10 minutes, and then my sister Heather came in and said, you can't watch this, and turned it off. So I didn't know how the movie ended for several years.
But I mean, this movie, I mean, it's as much as that it's a good horror movie, it's not that bad. It's not gory. There's no blood, like, you know, but it is yeah, it's scary. I remember watching it for the first time. I can't remember the first time that I watched it. But I do remember it like scaring me. So,
well,
I mean
the scariest part. Okay, I'm gonna argue with you on the gore part. There was like maggots coming out of a steak. All right,
Yeah.
and then the face tearing scene that we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
So those were pretty intense. But the scariest part is they, as far as I know, they pioneered that scene where someone's looking under the bed and then they go to the other side of the bed and the clown.
Oh yeah, and then
Yep.
the clowns there. Yeah,
that would probably be the scariest one, because that wasn't as much of a cliche at the time. But I would agree with you. I mean, and especially today's context, not scary at all.
And I would just say, go ahead, Jason.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say with like my girls and everything, like I'm not trying to like get them into like crazy horror, but just kind of easy ones, like something like this, or just things that are not like crazy stupid or just crazy over the top.
Yeah.
And they love it.
Yeah. And also, I have a note, Matt, while you were talking about the clown, I have a note in my phone while watching this that says, much like the Annabelle doll, no way in hell would I ever bring this fucking clown into my house.
Yeah.
Like, this thing is terrifying. Yeah, no, this movie is a pioneer of a lot. And I was actually having a conversation with my mom earlier about how much this movie's been referenced in just pop culture in general. You know, obviously "they're here" is, you know, an iconic line, and the Beast, and, you know, Zelda Rubinstein in here. It's just an iconic movie. And Mr. J, when did you first get around to seeing Poltergeist?
So I don't remember my first time all the way through it. I'm trying to think back. I remember loving it. I remember um it's funny how I remember more recent viewings of it more than I remember my first time with it. I feel like it was an interesting movie that did kind of a cool job, kind of partially telling the story through a more childlike lens, but then also a more adult lens at certain parts, because there was like a playfulness to it at times, and excitement. It didn't like start off just evil, you know? And I thought that was interesting. I will say, I think I watched it again a few times over the last couple days, and the "they're here" line is so good. And
Yeah, it
it's
is.
better than I remember it, because
Mhm.
it's been done to death, and it feels so sincere and not cringy over the top. And it feels almost like, not almost, I think a lot of movies try to come up with their own version of that, and the you can feel the score just building to it. Then they end up saying something that feels so forced, or what they're saying doesn't feel forced, but how they're saying it does. And that felt like a genuine like delivery from Heather O'Rourke.
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
and I love it.
she doesn't she doesn't go over the top with it.
Nope.
She's just sitting there looking at the fuzzy, you know, video on the screen, and she doesn't go crazy with it.
Nope.
She's like, they're
And
here.
Yeah.
she
It's like
almost sounds
they're
like she's a little anticipatory, or
oh yeah,
she
totally.
anticipates what's going on.
They're like friendly to her. It's like
Yes,
that's
yes.
that scene from Exorcist where Linda Blair is like talking to her mom about the Ouija board, how she met this
Captain
guy named
Howdy.
Captain Howdy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
like
there's
it
like
kind of
zero threat.
zero threat, exactly.
It's like,
Well,
well, this is fun.
I think the rewatching it, I think what's cool about it is the whole movie has that vibe of just childlike naivety to it. Like, even the way the movie starts,
Sure.
I love the way we're introduced to the family and the house by the dog walking from room to room. It's just like, oh, what's this? What's that? What's
Love
this?
that.
You know? And like, then we
Yeah.
meet the kids and Heather O'Rourke. We experience a lot of the ghost stuff through her,
Yeah.
and she doesn't see anything harmful in it. And it, again, that's that like paradox of the movie where it's like, ooh, this, I can't stop looking at this. This is so like magical, but then it just gets flipped on its head as the movie goes on, and you're like, oh, this is some dark shit.
Yeah. And then you realize, like, in hindsight, how stupid the mom is. You know, it's like she experiences that the kitchen scene where the chairs stack,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
and
Oh yeah.
she's like, I mean, because that was a legit scary scene.
Oh yeah.
Back even today, it's kind of scary the way they did that. They did that very well. But then later that night, she's like some dopey hippie pot smoker. She's like,
Yeah.
hey, Carol Ann, let's do this cool thing where we put you on the floor and this like energy force just drags you across the floor, and let's not be worried about that at all. It's just really cool and trippy.
And that is
She's
followed up.
as naive as her daughter.
Yeah. And that is followed up by kind of a interesting scene, because the mom then introduces the dad to that and, you know, shows him what's going on. And then when they have the mosquito bites, they go over to the neighbors and they're just like, there's weird stuff going on. Like,
Right.
like they're like losing their sanity to it.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah,
is this
that's a good
supposed
one.
to be funny, or is it supposed to be creepy?
Yeah. It was a little bit of both, and they did that well. Definitely. Yeah.
And I was lucky enough. I just got to see this movie on the big screen last year. Mr. J, did you go to that as well?
Regrettably, I did not.
Oh, boo. Uh, but watching this on the big screen, especially like this movie visually still to this day, like just insanely good looking. Like it it looks like it could have been made in the last few years still. Like it's like a timeless movie. And
Yes.
I
parts of it are-
I
yes.
applaud them
Mhm.
for that.
Sure. Yeah, and even the fake the fake special effects scenes are have an aesthetic about them. They're really interesting. And
Yep.
they're not off-putting, They're just
Mhm.
like, oh wow, it's a shit. You can see they did that with a green screen or something like that, but they did it very well, so you
Mhm.
can appreciate it. Mm.
And I know
Yeah,
I know an
just
aesthetic
even
that
some of the simple things, like the tables and the chairs moving. It's
Mhm.
just like so simple. Like it's,
yeah.
I
Yeah,
mean,
that was
it's
mhm.
somebody, I'm guessing, was pulling it along with a string or a
Mhm.
rope or whatever. But
Mhm.
it looks good.
It
It
does.
looks so good.
Totally.
And I know an aesthetic that Jason's enjoying in the movie is all of the Star Wars merchandise in the kids' room.
Yeah, yeah.
That's one
'Cause
thing
of
you
course
always
this
bring
is
up.
Mhm.
Yeah, because it's Spielberg, and just even there's just little tiny things where the kids are turning over and they've got a action figure in their mouth or whatever, and it's like a Luke Skywalker, figure or whatever. And of course, Spielberg and Lucas are friends, so it's really cool to just stupid shit.
Yeah,
Like,
I always
and then
appreciated that Star Wars ET tie-in, It's like the
I
yeah,
appreciated that
absolutely.
Star Wars tie-in,
totally. Totally. I mean, just the
but not ET.
figurines. I'm switching the subject here, but yeah, the Star Wars figures in ET, it's like, geez, how many millions did Lucas get from that? But I mean, but it works. It's not real cringy, I mean, it's not like
yeah.
Coca-Cola or Burger King. It's like,
Yeah.
and it's like, I don't know if Lucas is paying him back or whatever in Phantom Menace, where he has the scene in the Senate with the ET.
With the ETs, yeah.
Yeah. I don't, you know what? I love that because I don't have a lot of, when I do the autographs to the shows and stuff, I don't have a lot of taglines, it's just like, I have like 2 or 3.
Mhm.
One is beer good instead of be good. But the other one is may the beer be with you. And everybody gets a kick out of that one because it's like, that's, it references my most famous scene in ET, but also it's like it references the Star Wars ET tie-in, which is pretty explicit,
Oh, that's
All right.
beautiful.
Absolutely.
Of course,
And
I'm gonna go.
Well, and it's funny. And
Mhm.
and speaking of that, like in ET, just when they're walking around, the Yoda
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
comes walking along is just like, man, these guys are
Yeah.
these guys are buddies. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's just Lucas and Spielberg just, loving each other and just putting out these
Yeah,
uh
exactly. It's cute.
little things. Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, those are always fun tie-ins. And again, just the setup of the house in this movie is fantastic. And I mean, but you talk about the visuals. We brought it up a few times. Let's talk about that face melting scene and the rotting steak and the maggots and the chicken leg and
Sure.
and the face melting. Initial reactions when you first saw that, because that comes out of nowhere.
I mean, I was pretty horrified by it. When I found out, I found out later reading a Starloggers magazine that Spielberg said that he was underneath that face and he was doing the tearing, and you can kind of see from the angle of the arms is really kind of like awkward, it didn't look supernatural. I was like, yeah, that kind of makes sense. So every time I see that scene from now on, it's a very realistic looking effect, but you could totally, I see Spielberg right under that prosthetic, just tearing it up and having a good time.
That's beautiful. Jason, did this scare you when you first saw it?
Yeah, basically. There were a lot of things that scared me. of course, I've talked about it on the show quite a few times. That I did not get into horror or anything like that until I was much older. So seeing this stuff, or there were a lot of things that when I saw them, I was just like, oh shit, like just that just messed me up. And I just had a lot of fun with them, and uh, of course, after the initial shock of everything, then going back into it, like I had so much more fun with it. I learned to love horror, and of course, this is why we're here.
Hmm.
But yeah, there was a lot of initial things that just like I could not get on board with, or that kind of messed me up, and now they're like my favorite things. So
And Mr. J, how'd you do with this scene when you first when you first saw
It kicked things into higher gear for me.
it?
Yeah, that's true, because it definitely went from, I mean, PG to R, but it was still a PG film,
Mhm.
Yup. I thought they got such a wide variety of types of scares, and I just I don't know. I can appreciate the restrictions they imposed on themselves, but also love that they kind of were able to do the job within them, and then pushing the boundaries a little bit. And I don't know. I think back to that movie, and it's like, how did they get away with this?
Yeah.
And but in a positive way. It still felt like a big budget kind of. It didn't feel like this underground, you know, movie. It felt like this big budget type deal that happened to have subject matter that was a little more scary, a little bit different.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, and I bet
yeah,
they had to pull some strings probably back
they
then that we
had
just
to.
don't know about, because it's
Dude,
like,
they had
okay,
greasy palms.
yeah, because if it was an R, I could have seen Spielberg and other people saying, no, that means we're just not going to get the audience on this,
No, I
and
mean,
so
I
they're
don't even
probably
know if Spielberg would have entertained doing an R movie at that point. I feel like wasn't
no.
wasn't Schindler's List like his first R?
Oh, was it? I
Can't
wouldn't be
remember.
surprised. Yeah,
yeah,
because
I
that's pretty
believe so.
uh-huh.
I
Sure.
mean, because I mean, in that, for us in our world, that's not that, that's not a crazy deal.
Yeah,
But in their world, of course,
sure.
they're kind of being asked to turn out a product that's going to have some commercial
Mhm.
viability, and
Sure.
so
And he probably, and
our
he's
rating's gonna choose that one.
absolutely, and he's very articulate. I'm sure he made his case in a very articulate Spielbergian way. If
Sure.
they
Mhm.
did probably and then entertain the idea of making R because of that one scene. Um, but I remember in '84. Do you remember? Well, no, you guys are too young. It was before you were born, probably. But Gremlins was the first movie that
No,
was
I'm not too young. I love Gremlins.
okay. Cool.
Rockin' Ricky Rialto.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm the young one on here. These two over here
Okay. No,
are
I'm
definitely
planning
around
my
there.
retirement as I speak.
Gremlins was the one, like, it didn't have any gore at all. It didn't have any
no, not
nudity,
really.
and language wasn't a problem, but it was so intense that
Yep.
children were freaking out, and that's actually what inspired the ratings board to come up with PG-13. I don't know
Yep.
if do you remember that?
I do.
Yeah. So those 2 years after Poltergeist, So I mean, it doesn't make none of it makes any sense really.
Yeah.
I don't even think that
Well,
people
and
today. Go ahead.
I was under the understanding that Poltergeist was kind of part of there as well, because
Yeah.
really at the time it was either like PG or it was R. There was like no
Yeah.
PG-13, right?
Right.
Like
Mhm.
yeah, so it was like Poltergeist kind of rode that line,
Mhm.
and I don't think that was the reason that the 13
Yeah.
came out,
Uh-huh.
but it was kind of like why there was like kind of that line.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. That you can use it as a reference or a benchmark. But it's weird that it was after Gremlins that's when they decided to impose it. Because I mean, it's comparatively pretty tame compared to Poltergeist.
And I was gonna
Yeah,
say,
and
Mr.
I love Gremlins, and I just listened to one of our friends that has another podcast that we guest on all the time.
Yeah.
They just did an episode on Gremlins 2, and I was laughing the whole time because
That's
Gremlins
awesome.
2 is hilarious.
That's
And
awesome.
the first Gremlins is a great Christmas movie. I always watch it around
Yo.
Christmas
Yes.
because it technically is a Christmas movie.
Maybe
But I love
maybe
that movie. And
maybe a
my
future
kids laugh
episode
at it.
coming in December, Jason.
It really holds
Yeah,
up.
there you go.
The last show
Yeah,
that I
it's really
did,
great.
the last show that I did, Joe Dante was a guest. And I was just I remember it had two prominent guests. It was Richard Dreyfuss and Joe Dante. I wanted to meet both of them, but I didn't want to impose on them. But they were. It was definitely one of those shows where it's like, "Oh, are you lighting up again? What is that? Did I miss another light up? Are you guys paying attention?"
Did you light up another cigarette, Jason? Oh, there we go.
Oh, of course.
You need to pause so we can take a screenshot. But
I told you guys, I'm the fucking cancer man.
I know. Mr. J,
yeah.
you actually stumped me a little bit before because when you said that Spielberg's first R film was Schindler's List, I was thinking back, I'm like, is it? Because in my head, and Matt, you brought up a good point. It's weird that Gremlins was the threshold where they decided that they needed to do another rating because about a decade before that, Jaws comes out, and I always forget that's not a rated R movie.
Yeah.
I'm just like, how did that make it to a PG rating?
Yep.
But
yeah, because there's a scene of the decapitated head falling out of the boat, and I mean there's bloody scenes. There's not really gory scenes, but there's intense bloody scenes before that. Yeah, you can imagine that definitely earning an R rating.
Oh yeah, I think these days it would, but back in the 70s, I guess they were just like, nah, it's fine.
Yeah.
Exorcist somebody correct me. So I've watched Jaws recently, and the final scene or close to the final scene, where he goes to shoot the shark, he says, "Smile, you son of a bitch." And I've been watching it on TV. Does he actually say "son of a bitch," or do they take the shot?
Yeah, the shot. The shot.
Well, you son of
like
and then the shot goes off.
Yeah, it bleeps the bitch. I think it does.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
all right,
just so we're all clear, I did look it up. Apparently Spielberg did a movie called Amblin. It was a little short film, and that was somehow rated R, but it was a little short film. But his first feature film being R was Schindler's List, followed by Amistad.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
And then Munich.
Gotcha.
So there we are. I know there's a lot of Amblin fans out there.
On this podcast.
Matt being one of them. Matt's way into Amblin.
Yep.
That's beautiful. Well, I think we've talked about a lot of characters for Poltergeist. We'll just hit on a few more things about the movie. We can't talk about Poltergeist and not talk about Tangina, Zelda Rubinstein.
Zelda. Yep.
Yeah. I've heard it said both ways. That's why I said that. What'd you say?
Freaked my wife out.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Wow. She's supposed to be the comforting one, man.
I know. We're a pair, aren't we?
Wow, so Mrs. J is scared by Tangina, and you're scared, and you're scared by ET.
Yes.
Jason, how was it actually pronounced in the movie,
I'll probably own the ET one more than she'll just be like, yeah, I think Tangina like freaked me out a little as a kid or something. I'll straight up go, no, ET was horrifying, terrifying. Nightmare fuel.
We've talked about this.
Jason, how is it actually pronounced?
Oh, is it? Yeah. How is it pronounced?
How is
'Cause
it
I
actually
didn't.
pronounced in the movie?
I think it's Shinjana.
Well, that's a third option.
Yeah,
Uh,
you just added a third one, Tangina.
I'm looking it up.
Okay, thank you. But she,
I thought I knew everything about the movie, but I forgot her name.
I know, right? I had it in my head, and then it just my brain shut down for a minute. But
Mm.
she's one of the best characters like ever introduced in a movie. She is
Oh yeah, I mean,
she's supposed to be
the
comforting, but I guess
Mm.
Mrs. J saw it a different way.
Mm. Well, she's intense. I mean, was she put off by her intensity, Jay?
She might have been put off by her intensity and her very particular character,
Yeah.
where she walks in very confident in certain things, speaking of certain things. It might have just been unfamiliar to her as a kiddo.
Yeah.
Everyone else is scared. She's not as scared. And then there are times she's more scared than the rest of the family, which of
Yes.
course is there on purpose so that we go, oh
Mm.
crap, they're not smart enough to be scared.
Yeah.
Like she knows what's up, which is very scary.
Yeah. So in
Yeah,
the movie,
I remember it was very heart-wrenching when she was telling Craig T. Nelson to threaten Carol Ann with
Yep.
spanking. I mean,
Mhm.
that I remember that.
Yes.
That kinda hit me.
That was intense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because he wasn't, that kind of father, and they reacted to it. It was so great the way they reacted to it. It was very natural. So yeah, very intense character, that woman.
Oh yeah, and I love her monologues in the movie. Especially like probably my favorite scene in the movie is just because Mr. J hit up an important point here where there's a lot of different scares in here. There's the jump scare, there's the practical effects, there's the verbal scene that's just meant to instill creepiness. And my favorite scene in the movie is the verbal introduction of the beast, where Tangina's talking about there's this other spirit, and to Carol Ann, it's just another child.
Right.
But to us, it's known as the beast, and I think that scene is amazing and
Yes.
super, super creepy.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, because it's like
Yeah,
it's like you mean the devil? The devil
Yeah.
himself? Shit. It's pretty heavy.
What were you gonna
well,
say, Jason?
well, I was gonna say in the first one, she has a verbal conversation about it, like saying like who this guy is, or what this creature or whatever you want to call it, whatever it is, this entity. And then they kind of expand on it in the second one, and I actually really like in the second one, the preacher that kind of
Pain.
yeah, I really like him. I think he's a really cool character that kind of expands on what the original kind of concept or idea was.
Mhm.
And then later on, they go on and kind of flesh him out as a real character. And when he walks up to that door for the first time and seeing him, like, he is creepy as fuck.
Yeah.
He's
got that
he's
villainous
really
face.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess as we bring it home on, Poltergeist, we'll talk about, just a few moments at the end, because I mean, this movie has such a great, psych moment with, we think that the house is clean. We got Carol Ann back. We've seen the beast, and it's been, banished from the house, whatever. And then, you only moved the headstones, so we're gonna see all these creatures come out. The bodies in the pool still super grosses me out.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's great.
The portal scene when the closet finally opens up and it's that like regurgitating, like I don't even know what to call it. It's just
Skeleton
that portal.
spider creature.
Yeah.
Oh no, I see what you're saying. Yeah, it looked like a trachea.
Yeah, it looks like a throat, basically.
Yeah.
I don't even know if trachea is the right word. It's you're right. It kind of does look like that, but like it's just like damn. I don't even know how to say it.
Yeah, but it looked like the inside of a
Kinda
worm
looks
or
like-
something.
Kind of looks like a badge too.
Like a what?
Like a badge as well.
Oh, the
You're-
vaginal canal.
you're
Yeah,
not-
there's a.
you're not
Yeah,
wrong.
Matt, thanks for
kind of.
making that more
I'm-
classy.
I'm sorry.
I want to
couldn't-
isolate that so badly and just have D struggling to say
I want to light up a
badge, and
cigarette
you're just,
right now.
Oh, the
I
vaginal
will-
canal.
I could have said it.
Now's the
way
time to
worse.
light up a cigarette.
I will take a clip of that and put it on our
There
Instagram
you
where
go.
it's just that clip.
That's the teaser. Yeah, I was like, what is he saying? Badge?
Yeah,
Oh,
we get
badge. Holy
yeah,
shit.
we get ET on the
But
podcast,
right,
and what does Jason
right.
do? He's talking about comparing the portal in the house to a vag.
I regret this immediately.
Yeah, well,
I'm
that's
just
true. There's like
saying.
Carol Ann was covered in like afterbirth when she came out of that portal, right? Yeah.
Well,
I
It
get
does
it.
seem like
yeah.
it was a pretty heavy-handed implication there that
Yeah,
she's
totally.
being birthed
Yeah, no,
back
you-
into
Absolutely.
the art physical plane. So I mean, I think it's fair. I think
Yeah,
that's a
it
It
fair
is.
thing.
It totally is. Sorry for shaming you for thinking of vagina.
No, it's okay.
This
I'm
is
only
always-
shaming him for not saying
It's
it.
okay.
This is always where Jason's mind is when we podcast.
I'm terrible all the time. But I'm saying like, because even just like you said, like when they come out of the ceiling, like they're covered in like, like kind of like afterbirth, and they got to put them in the bath and
Yeah.
wash them off, and
Mhm.
that's the same thing that you do with a baby.
Yeah.
Like when the
It's like
baby's
spiritual
born,
amniotic
like
fluid. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, when a baby is born, like you gotta take them out, like
So-
pat their back, and
Sorry, Mr.
You
J,
know-
did you just say spiritual amniotic fluid?
Yeah.
All right, let's make it family friendly. It's ectoplasm.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh,
there we go.
The
There we
slime
go.
in the netherworld. We can't explain.
Jeez.
But
well,
yeah,
I mean-
basically that kind of
Need
feels
Yeah.
to it.
Yeah.
Need we
Fine.
say anything else about how amazing Poltergeist is? Like, I feel like that's just the note to end on with the movie discussion. Is there any
So
other points
good.
that you all wanted to hit on before we end the Poltergeist talk? It's a great movie. You should watch it this October, and it's a classic for a reason, and it's great.
The one more thing that I do want to say is that white kind of spider
Yes.
creature, whatever
Uh-huh.
you want to talk about,
Yeah.
or whatever you want to call it, at the top of the stairs is like one of the most terrifying things that I've ever seen.
That's the beast,
Oh.
isn't it?
Yeah, that was a good effect, and that is, in hindsight, that probably is the beast, right? I'm thinking.
That's how I took it. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's what I always took it as. Yeah, it's that was kind of the beast. But yeah, man, that thing at the top of the stairs, and it actually kind of looks like the faces from Indiana Jones.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yes, that was one of the most. I mean, it's not a horror movie, but that's one of the greatest horror scenes.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
There it goes. There's the lighter. He's smoking up. Smoke up if you got
Yeah.
him.
Smoke 'em when you got 'em.
There
Mr.
he
J, you
goes.
got or Matt and Mr. J, you have any closing thoughts on Poltergeist?
I don't think so. I mean, we could always do an episode 2 on Poltergeist and talk about its flaws, just like we could do that with ET and Alien and all that. That would be an interesting sequel. But no, I mean, for right now, I would rather endorse it, encourage people to watch it, and
Yeah.
watch it in good fun. Don't expect to be too scared. Maybe, I mean, if you want to be scared, make your baby watch it or something. I don't know.
Maybe.
Like
Find
Mr. J
someone's
did.
baby.
Yeah, not your own. Go get
Not your own
someone else's,
baby.
and
Find
then-
someone else's baby.
But yeah, no,
It's
wholeheartedly
their
adore-
therapy bills to worry about.
Yeah, exactly. You'll be paying for those later.
No,
Yeah.
I think I would just want to say that part 2 was so solid, and that in the horror world, there's often just such a big drop off, I think, publicly between the part 1, part 2, and part 2 is such a solid follow up that I'd say, man, watch part 1, enjoy it, and then cruise on into part 2, baby.
Cool.
There
All
you
right. All right. We're all endorsing part 2.
There we go. There's our
Yeah.
sequel episode right there.
Mhm.
So that's our talk on Poltergeist. I wanted to open up the floor in case any three of us have questions for you, Matt, if that's all right.
Sure.
Mr. J, you want to go first? I know that you might have had a little bit of a time crunch. Did you want to go first?
I just want to say thank you for coming on the podcast. It's been an honor to meet you and have you on here. And it's got to be just I mean, it sounds cliche, but it's got to be just so trippy that you've contributed to so many people's lives and so many of their even just foundational childhood memories. Like it's because of you. And so that's got to be kind of a fun.
Oh yeah, I mean that's
Just
one of the
thing.
reasons why I do these shows is like, everybody's got the same but also a very different story about how ET has impacted their lives and how far it goes back into their childhood and how it helped them. I mean, you get the other half too. It's like freak them the fuck out, but eventually they were able to make it to the end.
That's right.
And get over that hump.
Not naming any names or anything.
Not naming any names. No, I mean, seriously, we do have a large percentage of the people that I meet at the show are people like that. But they got over the hump, and then they still want to meet me and ask me questions and stuff like that. So that's cool. So it's like, they're not completely soured on it just because it fucked them up and then
no. You are redeeming the ET name.
Yeah. So it's cool. No, I appreciate it, Mr. J. Thank you.
Absolutely, brother.
Awesome.
Well,
Mr. J,
did you
Mr. J, did you want to hang out, Mr. J, or did you have to go?
I actually have to jet, but thank you guys so much.
Of
Thank
course,
you,
brother.
Jay.
Thanks for joining,
Good
man.
to meet you, buddy.
Y'all have a fun
love
one.
you, brother?
Love you more.
Love you, buddy.
Okay, bye.
Talk to you later. Love y'all. Bye.
Bye.
Later. Jason, you want to go next?
Yeah, Matthew, I was just gonna ask, like how did you find the role?
Mm-hmm.
And
So I was okay. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Okay, so when I was I was my disability is a birth defect. I was born without legs, so I didn't lose my legs. So after I was born, the doctors were trying to figure out how is he gonna get around? It's gonna be a wheelchair, is it gonna be prosthetic legs or whatnot? And so they sent me to UCLA Medical Clinic, which had a rehabilitation center where they were like figuring this all out. How is he gonna move around? They saw I could move around on my hands, and that was good. That's the way I got around in the ET costume. They saw I could get around on a skateboard, which was also good, but they thought it has to be something better than this, So they fit me with prosthetic legs, and I messed around with those for a couple years. Wheelchair could also work, but it was also a little cumbersome because the wheelchair technology back then was pretty lame. The wheelchairs were heavy.
Yeah.
They certainly didn't look cool. Not as cool as a skateboard, right?
Right.
So there were like 4 different modes of transportation. So anyway, getting to Universal Studios, they somehow, some brain box at Universal Studios figured they could call one of these rehabilitation centers where there are, short people and people without legs and whatnot, and see if they could be if they could fit in the ET costume and do anything with it. They probably didn't think anybody without legs. That wasn't what first came to mind. They were thinking like midgets and dwarfs and stuff. That was the terminology at the time.
Sure.
And so one of my doctors said, well, we have a kid with no legs here. He walks on his hands. He could stand on his hands. He could lift up his torso, and he could use his hands as his feet. And so they're like, oh, that sounds interesting. So the doctor gave him my number, and they called my mom and asked them if I would be available to do an audition in Northridge and meet Carlo and Steven. That's how I got the part, basically.
There we go.
That's very cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just kind of like in the same vein, one of my daughters, like she was born with like club and rocker foot and like had all these kind of disabilities with her feet, and they told us that she would never walk. And we got her in casts and started just working with her for a long time, and she got up and she went along, and she's great now. and we've had people, ask us like, hey, can she do this and do that? And so it's kind of a little bit of a similar situation.
Mhm.
I know it's not the same thing, but
Well,
no, I
still, no,
understand where you're
that's
coming from.
a legitimate handicap. She had to learn to walk with two deformed feet, basically, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, absolutely.
No,
Um,
that's a huge obstacle to overcome. So she has braces. Does she have braces, or she just eventually was able to acclimate her legs to walking?
not anymore. So initially she did have braces and she was casted until she was like 3 to 4 years old, and
Yeah.
they told us she would never walk,
Uh-huh.
and she just got up and with the casts on, and then she did have to do braces for a little while, and
Mhm.
she just got up and just started rolling.
Oh,
Um,
nice. That's awesome.
yeah, yeah.
Mm. I love
Um,
hearing
so
stories like that.
yeah, so we were so proud of her.
Yeah,
But no.
that's incredible stories, absolutely. And Matt, I know that you kind of referenced it earlier. Your icon, like one of your iconic scenes is the scene where ET is drunk in the kitchen and kind of waddling around after drinking the beer, hence the taglines that you put on some of your headshots. And I know that I think my mom actually purchased one of those, and you wrote may the beer be with you, so that's a prized
Okay.
possession of hers.
Awesome.
How And I was trying to read it. I read an interview earlier where you were talking about, in the suit, it had said that you had a hole in the chest area where you could look out, and then ET's head sort of balanced on top of your own head. Is that right?
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah, there were like slits in the chest where I could make out where I was going so I could navigate myself.
Gotcha.
And they set the head on top of my head.
Okay. And I mean, what is the what is it like being inside that suit from your experience? Like, was it like kind of, did you panic a little bit, or was it pretty comfortable? Because I had also read that Steven Spielberg was checking on you to make sure you were okay.
Yeah, there was everybody was concerned because, it's funny, the latex recipe back then was worse than it was today. So it's like latex shrank back then. And
Mm.
so each time we put on the costume, it was harder and harder to get on. So I think
Oh, geez.
they're panicking a little bit. It's like it was dawning on special creature effects artists that the latex, there's something wrong with latex,
Hmm.
whereas it wasn't stable basically. So, but they didn't. What were they going to do? Like make a whole other costume? So they just had to deal with it. So I think for that reason, like the concern became greater and greater every time they put on the costume. And of course, they can see it was soaking wet every time they took off the costume. So they knew latex was a very breathable fabric, So I mean, they were concerned about that. Then it's funny, it's like they're in a lot of ways movies. I don't know about today. They're a little bit more cautious today. Back then, they're just flying by the seat of their pants. It's like because what they should have thought, they should have had a little bit more pre-planning. It's like, okay, how do we create a cooling system that will fit within the costume that will, you know what I mean? It's like dry ice is pretty low tech solution. How about that one?
Yeah.
That's
But
amazing.
but even the technology, I'm sure they could have done, I'm sure they could have rigged something up to cool me off, but they didn't really think about that kind of stuff back then, It was
Yeah.
all about, budget and getting things done quickly. And, these are like kind of like after the fact thoughts. So I mean, the solution was to keep shooting limited to 5 to 10 minutes at a time where I was
Hmm.
in the costume, and check on me periodically to make sure I wasn't dead, and blow some air, take the head off and like blow some air down the costume, and cool me off. But that was basically it. I mean, that was the experience of doing it. It was no more than 10 minutes at a time. It was hot. It was like a sauna, but I mean, it wasn't unbearable.
Gotcha. That's very cool.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you had like a really good dynamic with, people like Robert and Henry and Steven and even Dee Wallace behind the scenes. Was that pretty accurate behind the scenes? Everybody was just a big family in real life?
Kind of. I was, I joined 2 weeks in, so it could have been like an outside looking in kind of thing, because everybody established their chemistry and was doing their rehearsals and had established relationship. But I tell you, one good thing about Robert and Henry is they're really good people, because despite that, they could have just gone on with the chemistry that they had with the cast at the time. But instead, they were visiting my trailer very early on and saying, hey, they were introducing themselves basically and saying, let's kind of create some kind of mayhem, let's get something. Why are you hanging out in your trailer the whole time? I mean, we understand, it's kind of cool. You think you're a movie star and whatnot, it's kind of new experience, but it's like, no, come on, let's kind of like, let's knock some shit over.
There you
go. I really appreciated that. So it was just basically, it was Robert and Henry and I. And Henry didn't have a lot of movie experience. Robert was experienced mainly in stage, but he hadn't done a lot of movies at that time. So we had that commonality as well. We were all around the same age, and we all had the kind of the same personality. So yeah, I really appreciated their attention to visiting me and establishing some kind of chemistry where we could create our own kind of like group. And
awesome.
Yeah, so it was cool.
Yeah, and you guys carry that dynamic when you're when you're hanging out at cons.
Absolutely. Too. I mean, that's why I do these things, is like, just getting together with them, having an excuse to get together with them and just live like it was old times, is just such a great thing. That's why I love doing these shows.
And that ties into the last of 2 questions that I have for you before we get out of here.
Sure.
I know that again, we've talked offline or off the air that you're doing more shows these days. So how has getting into the con experience been for you? Has it been what you expected, or how has it been meeting all these people and just being immersed in what it is to be at a con, especially something like a horror con like Horrorhound or the one you just did in Virginia?
Mm-hmm. It's all pretty new to me. I mean, I'm still kind of getting my head around, what is this all about? And like, I'm constantly flabbergasted by the top tier of guests that attend these things, these that do these things. I always assumed like it was like, D to F level actors who were, and people, movie staff that were doing these cons, and it was like, turns out, Richard Dreyfuss, like I mentioned earlier, Joe Dante. It's like, okay, that's the top of the heap right there. And so I'm a little overwhelmed by that, because I don't feel comfortable going to Joe Dante and say, hey, I've been a big fan of yours for years, because I know he's overwhelmed by that. I don't want to be boring. I don't want to bore him or overwhelm him or make him even more how should I say? I don't want to tire him out, because he's had that all day,
Right.
So it's just as overwhelming. And I know a lot of the guests who meet him are the same way. They're just as intimidated. They don't want to ask the same questions or say the same things as other people. A lot of them have probably like looked into Joe Dante's and Richard Dreyfuss's and other actors of that, other figures of that sort, to figure out, what are their hobbies, or what are the things apart from the directing that would be interesting to talk to them about, so I kind of wouldn't be that way. And if I'm not, then I just don't even meet them at all,
Sure.
So yeah, so it's all new to me. How did you get involved in cons, by the way? I mean, you've obviously been very experienced with it. How did that start for you guys?
Well, so for me, I went to my first con in 2019. Just being a massive horror fan, they finally so we live down here in South Carolina, and a convention called Carolina Fear Fest started up about 4 years ago. And me and my friends at the time were like, we're really big horror fans, let's just go. And I didn't really know much about cons. I just saw, oh wow, they have some of the actors there. They had like Cousin It from the Addams Family, the actor there for that. And I was like, I don't know anything about cons, but let's just go. It sounds like fun. They got Miko Hughes from Pet Sematary. And I showed up, and it's just this big culture of, you get to meet people that you admire and you watch in these movies, but you also, like, anytime I go to a con, I just instantly make like 1,000,001 friends with all the people that that I talk to, you'll just be standing in line waiting to meet someone, and you're just like, "Oh, hey, how are you? I hear you like this movie," because you hear conversations from, all fronts. And from there it was kind of, I didn't go back to a con for a few years, just because the pandemic hit not long after. But then last year, Carolina Fear Fest happened again, and I went back, and they had built it up and gotten more stars and added things to it, and I just had the time of my life. And it was actually that con, midway through it, that I sat down at a restaurant and I said, I want to start a podcast about horror movies and have a podcast that's like that community. So I came up with the idea and the name, and I called Jason and I said, Jason, you want to get on board with this? Because he's always been a curator of movies for me. And that's how this was born. And then ever since then, it's an addicting feeling going and meeting people that you admire, like yourself, and just being immersed in the culture. Jason, what was your foray into cons?
We just had a good time, and actually Bucky was the one that got me into it. I've only been to one con, and the con that we went to in Columbia was great, and we met a lot of good people. And I had never really gotten to meet some of my kind of heroes, or not even like heroes, but just like people that I love so much, like from different places. And it's just been fun. Like we've been doing this for about a year now, and the people that we can get on to our show are amazing. And I never thought that we could get people of your caliber or any other caliber onto our show. I thought, maybe like 5 people would listen to us, or whatever. Like, and we've just been at it for like a year, over a year. And just the people that we've met from different podcasts, and just everything, like, has just been amazing. So it's great.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, being able to attend these conventions and interact with these guests personally has really helped your podcast, right? So you've been able to build your guest roster and have some really interesting subjects to talk about.
For sure. And
Absolutely.
what's always funny is the podcast ends up becoming like a bridgeway where we become like friends with these people. We actually just had the star of Poltergeist on the show a few weeks back, and now he's just a buddy of ours, and we just text with him and mess around. And I've had the honor to message you and talk a little bit, and again, just
that's cool. I could see that building into, like, okay, you feature them as a guest, and then you have another topic coming up that your guest might be interested in, and so they participate as a guest commenting on that. I would be willing to do something like that. That sounds pretty cool, actually. So
it's absolutely a lot of fun. Because we just, all of the people that we've met, everybody's like, oh yeah, let's get an episode on this. Let's do this movie, or whatever. And it's just a lot of fun. It's this great community.
Sure.
And we're glad to have you on.
Thank you. And we actually just did, I mentioned it earlier, but just last Thursday, we did a live podcast event where we sat in front of a crowd and we did interactive episodes where it was like a bracket war. We're talking about what the best movie in each franchise was. And all of our friends and family came out, and we just sat there and talked about horror and released them as live episodes. And it really just becomes like this big family where we all rally around this horror thing, and we just have a good time talking about it. So it really is something special.
Awesome. Yeah, keep me in mind if you got any interesting episodes coming up.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but feel free to reach out to me and ask me if I want to participate, and I'll be happy to consider it.
Absolutely, we would love it. And I have
for sure.
one final question to end on. This is the one from my mom,
All right.
Kat.
Hi, Kathy. Kat.
Either or, yeah. And she wanted to ask, so going back to E.T. being drunk, she wanted to ask how you learned to portray drunk in that scene at, being a preteen.
Yeah. All right. So they put cores into an IV and then stuck it into my arm. That way they can be accused of making me drink it. All right, no, these are really stupid jokes.
No,
All right,
that's beautiful.
No, I mean Spielberg actually said one time in Starlog that in my audition, the first thing that came to mind when he saw my walk, which was different than Pat's walk, which he had a more steady gait. He was like, "Oh, he'd be perfect for the drunk scene. I could put him in other scenes too, but the drunk scene would be perfect because he has a kind of a waddle about him." And so basically, I mean, the long story short, Kat, is that I look like I'm drunk when I walk. It's just a natural characteristic of my walk when I walk on my hands. So that was it.
There we
Didn't
go.
have to drink any quarters at all.
There we go. The magic of filmmaking. Well, hey,
All right.
Matt, it has been an absolute pleasure and an honor to have you on. And again, I have to say thank you, because at Horrorhound, you mentioned to me, like, asking if volunteering to be on the podcast. And, I can't thank you enough for that. And it's been an absolute pleasure getting to talk to you for the last 7 months and to finally have this happen. So just thank you for coming on. And we are happy to have you back anytime you would like.
Awesome. I'll be happy to do it, man. I'm glad we finally got around to do it. Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate it. And thank you, Jason.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
All right.
absolutely, bud.
Awesome.
All right. Quit cigarettes. All right.
There
All
you
right,
go.
there's-
You heard it.
I will try.
You heard it. You heard it from
You're
ET
welcome.
himself.
Come on. Yeah, you heard it
Jason.
from ET himself. All right. So it's supposed to have some impact. All right.
All right, I'll
That's
give it a
beautiful.
shot.
I'm
Well,
just breaking your,
I'm
I'm just breaking your balls. I've been drinking beer during this whole podcast. So I'm
Hey,
one
that's the
talk.
way to do it. Well, we'll wrap it up here. This has been the Midnight Terrors podcast, everybody. Get in touch with us under Midnight Terrors Podcast on Facebook and Instagram. Shoot us an email at midnightterrorspodcast@gmail.com. You can check out our TeePublic store if you want to pick up. I think you can actually see it. There's one of the shirts right there. So if you want to pick one of those up, you can, or stickers or hoodies and shirts. And thank you again, everybody who came out to our live event. We had the time of our lives doing that. And we love you all so much for coming on out. Y'all are awesome.
And give Matt an opportunity.
Oh yeah, no, we got you, man. We got you. But then this is it for the month of October. This is our big Halloween episode. And we hope y'all have enjoyed all the extra episodes that have come out this month. And that's all I got, Matt. You got anything you want to plug, or you got any shows coming up that you're going to be at? Anything you want to promote before we get out of here?
Actually, no, I got no plugs whatsoever. Nothing on the schedule. So no, wait, let's do a let's sign out as you do.
Absolutely. Well,
Well,
hopefully,
we are
hopefully we'll
gonna
see you at a
do
con
another
down
episode.
here in SC.
Well, that would be nice. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm always happy to do them, but until then, no.
Well, we'll put
I'm
in a good word.
unemployed.
We'll put in a good word for you.
All right. Awesome. Thanks, buddy.
Well, until then, we love you, and we'll do it
We
again.
do. We love
Thank you,
Matt.
Jason.
Thanks
All right.
so much. This is the
You're welcome,
Midnight
guys.
Terrors podcast. We'll see y'all again soon. Peace.
Bye, guys.